Well, I thought I'd never have to make a video on this, but I think now is a good time. Let's talk about some apple trees in DayZ, because in 0.62 and in the previous patches, it has been a hot topic of debate, thanks to basically the apple glitch exploit, but I'm going to try to avoid discussing the glitch because on their own, apple trees can be pretty game breaking with their current mechanics, and I know that the game is just an alpha, and I do expect the gathering mechanics to change in the future, not only for apple trees, but for rose hips, blueberries, stones, sticks, and all of the other gathering materials in the game. Recently, in my How is DayZ 0.62 video, I mentioned how it would be a good time for the developers to consider removing the apple trees or causing them to spawn rotten apples for the time being. This suggestion caused a massive debate in the comment section and for some uncontrollable anger, and I wish I was kidding. Then there were those that want you to have the ability to spawn an infinite number of apples from the trees that you can find in almost every single town in the game. If you're in this minority, then congratulations, because you're the reason why I felt like I needed to make this video in the first place. So why is it such a big deal? In DayZ, as you can expect, food is an extremely important resource to always keep in mind. If you go without food, then you'll die, plain and simple. The developers have given us, the player base, a large variety of ways of collecting food. You can loot houses for canned goods, you can kill zombies for fruit and canned goods, you can kill other players for supplies, you can kill players and cannibalize them like an evil madman, you can fish, you can farm, you can hunt, you can gather rose hips, and, of course, you can gather apples. When it comes to looting and gathering food, traditionally you need to put in some effort by searching house to house to find your goods, while killing zombies along the way. Killing players can sometimes reward you with food, and if you're into it, you can also get some meat, but that comes at the cost of getting brain disease, which is honestly almost never worth it unless you're streaming and you want to make a couple of your viewers laugh, or you want to roleplay, but for PvP, it's pretty terrible. Hunting requires you to seek out animals in the wilderness and harvest them. Fishing and farming don't require as much effort as hunting, but still take time and certain items to do. And gathering rose hips requires you to have the knowledge of which berries are edible and which ones are not, as well as knowing where the bushes are because they're not as obvious as the apple trees. The energy value of rose hips are also pretty low, and the effort that's exerted without the glitch almost doesn't outweigh the time spent collecting them. Now, gathering apples is pretty easy. In almost every town in the game, there's apple trees. Each apple will give you a significant amount of energy and hydration, and doesn't take that long at all to collect 3 or 4 apples that will keep you alive. If you want to spend 5 minutes picking apples, I'm sure you'd almost have a full bag, and if you use the glitch, you can spawn an infinite amount of them at any time. So, as you can see, apple trees give players the ability to collect an infinite amount of food in almost every town in the game. Now, thanks to RNG, you're never guaranteed to find an apple each time. I did some research to see if I can find the actual odds, and it tends to be 20%, so 1 in every 5 times you pick from the apples. And for those that use the glitch, they basically never have to worry about food and water mechanics in the game. Lately, I've only been picking apples when I've exhausted all other options to obtain food given my time frame. I never resort to the glitch anymore, and I try to limit the apples I pick to just the amount I need to keep me alive, either on yellow hungry or neutral status. Honestly though, in the current state of the game, if you are struggling and you're about to starve to death, there really isn't anything wrong picking apples. At least you put in a bit of time in exchange for the apples, but I would deeply suggest exploring other methods of collecting food in the game to give you more immersion if possible. But basically, play how you want, don't let me tell you how to play. As long as you're not exploiting any glitches, you should be okay. Now, all this talk about apples and their impact on the game, I'm going to talk about some solutions that the developers could deploy for beta and beyond to help resolve this issue. And I also want to see some of your guys' suggestions in the comments below to see what we can do about this problem. With the first solution, each tree will have 5 fresh apples and 15 rotten apples. Players can pick each tree until all the apples have been picked. The apples don't respawn until a server restart. Option 2, each tree can be shaken, causing the apples to drop around the tree. Rotten apples should have a cleanup time like 45 minutes or so they don't bog down the server, and each tree can drop 5 to 10 apples RNG with a 1 to 5 chance of dropping fresh apples. They don't respawn until server restart. Option 3, each tree changes status on server restart. Some trees will only spawn rotten apples, some will spawn fresh apples with a limit of 20 each tree. They could even add a different apple tree texture showcasing the rotten apple trees in comparison to the fresh ones, so an experienced player can run through an apple orchard and easily spot the tree with the fresh apples. Of course, still limiting the amount of apples you can pick from the tree, but encouraging players to actually visually look to see which tree they should harvest. I personally like option 3 because it rewards players to find the fresh apple trees first, and it will cause players to move into different towns that some players may have not have been before, specifically to take advantage of those apple trees that might be fresh or could be rotten. And then we have option 4, which is the most savage of the options, and I know this one that you guys may not like, but in the short term, they should make all of the trees spawn rotten apples until the glitch has been resolved. I don't think it's that bad of an option for 0.62 when you really think about it, because sure, a lot of people are going to die, but this is a survival game. It's supposed to be difficult to survive. People should be trying to hunt. They should see a herd of cows and freak out, or hunt some deer, or kill the chickens that they see, or grow vegetables and actually do horticulture, or try to fish, or be enforced in these crazy situations to become a cannibal because you have no other option. Those game mechanics and situations just don't happen that much because people rely too much on the apple trees. I would just like to see how the community will struggle, even if it's just for a week or two. Like, it would be an interesting experiment to see what would happen if they made every tree spawn rotten apples. I don't know, so I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this in the comments. That's my take on it, yeah, I just hope to see that this mechanic, although it's very basic, it does have a pretty big impact on the game and the loot economy. So it would be nice to see something change with the apple trees sometime soon, hopefully in 0.63. But I just wanted to end this video by saying that 0.62 is now officially on stable branch as of this afternoon, meaning that this is the last DayZ alpha patch. So DayZ 0.63 is going to be beta, and it's going to be big, and we're only a couple months away from that. So we have lots of content to dive into on 0.62 to get us to that point. So it's an exciting time now to be a DayZ fan, and I know I made a couple videos like a month ago whenever things were kind of pretty bad for DayZ, but things are starting to turn around, and the game is playing very, very well right now. So if you've not played DayZ in a while, I highly recommend that you come back, check it out, and come and experience some cool encounters. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow during the daily live streams. Like, there's fucking apple trees, like, everywhere in this town. Like, there's 2. There's 4. There's 3. There's another 4. Everywhere, there's one right there beyond the green. Everywhere I look in this village, it's just all free, infinite food resources.